If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed. What is the long-term effect of too much information?
Information, I just need some information. I've been dying. Is it lack of education? I've been reading without any transformation. I'm addicted. Is it overstimulation? Hey.
Welcome to the Sixth Sense Report.
Hear ye, come one, come all. You are listening to the Sixth Sense Report with Joel Nikoloff and Darnell Samuels.
Oh man, this one, I was almost surprised we hadn't touched this topic yet.
Like, yeah, we were bound to get to it.
I mean, I think we sort of, we touched it a little bit, but realistically, like, we're circling back around and hitting it right on the head in the sense of sports and what they've been doing to try to fight the pandemic, let's say.
Yeah. Well, the last time we did sports, wasn't it? We were looking at the social justice stuff in the sports.
Well, I think
Justice League. We did social justice league.
Well, I think okay, there's that. But I was thinking we also, I think on the vaccine passport episode, we touched this sort of like in passing because it was part of the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really good. No, this should be good. And it's been pretty fascinating to watch it all unfold. And the reason why this is important and for us to touch it is because sports is like a microcosm of what's going on in society. So it's always good to analyze sports, and it tells us a lot about where we are, one as a country, and as where the world is as a whole. Mm-hmm. So for the listeners, the direction we'll be headed is, the first thing we'll hit is why is the OUA not considered an elite league by Ontario? And then we'll talk about vaccine passports at the amateur level, and then unvaccinated pro athletes and vaccine passports at the pro level.
Mm-hmm. And just for the listener, the other episode that's related is it was titled "Are Religious Exemptions Biblical?" And that's when we were talking about the NBA players a little bit. So I'll have those two episodes in the show notes page: Social Justice League and Religious Exemptions. So episode 128 and episode 93 for those that want to go searching rather than the show notes page.
Well, the show notes page is still helpful.
Well, yeah, no. I just mean if you're in your podcast app and you're looking to download 93 and 126, 128. Hopefully
okay, cool.
That makes it easy on them.
Cool. Yeah. So it's funny, man. This popped up, the OUA issue. For those of you who don't know what the OUA is, but it's the university level sports.
Yeah. Essentially, it's like a comprehensive league. Would you call it that? Like encompasses all sport, or is it like? I guess it's an association.
Yes. Like kind of like the NCAA.
Yeah. I think it's Ontario University Association, OUA. I don't know. So
the OUA, the U Sports. There was a statement that came out from the Ontario,
correction, Ontario University Athletics.
That makes
sense.
Doug Ford, basically came out and said, in light of the recent lockdown.
Lockdown by any other name.
Well,
it's not. They're not calling it a lockdown. I'm just mocking the ridiculousness of it all.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's called a lockdown by any other name.
Okay. Well, what else? What was the other name?
No, that's the point. Any other name.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So basically, during the lockdown, he was basically saying that for collegiate athletes, they will have to sit out this time to avoid vaccine or not vaccine, COVID, to avoid COVID and the gathering and all that. But then the leagues below the collegiate level are still allowed to play. And that's where the collegiate athletes were offended by the idea that the OUA, the collegiate level of sports, wasn't considered elite. Right? So a lot of people were pretty angry about that.
Mm-hmm. Understandably so. I mean, it's an interesting question. If I was to oversimplify it, I think it just has to do with the education connection as to why they were left
Well,
out.
Okay,
'Cause-
okay. Let me
Okay.
name some of these leagues for some
Okay.
who are curious. So the leagues below the OUA are the OSBA, high school basketball, CHL, PWHL, League One soccer, Elite Baseball League of Ontario, and Women's Field Lax
Lacrosse
under 19.
and Junior A lacrosse.
Yeah, so Field Lax is under 19. Under 19.
Yeah, but this is just like the pro league or the it's kind of like in the NHL or for hockey. There's the OHL, which would be the under, technically not quite under 19, but essentially the equivalent, in the sense of your elite. Let's call them young athlete leagues. So these were the elite amateur leagues that were included, i.e., they were allowed to continue.
Right.
And then OUA, which as a contrast looks like, the question that we're asking is, well, why is it excluded? Why isn't this, why it looks the same in terms of quality or let's say, okay. So, this is the question, right? From using the title that they gave, which was Elite Amateur Leagues, would you consider OUA in general to be elite amateur league?
Of course.
Okay. And so this is why I was saying, as a contract, like the reason you're saying that is because you consider it to be, let's say, on a equivalency to these leagues that they have included. Now, which ones are better? That's a different question. But they're equivalent in terms of the echelon of athletes that are attracted. There's this article that I have. I don't know. It's like, I just like it because of the way it's structured as to some of the information. It's called 49-Sport. And down later on, they're like, what does this mean for student athletes? And then they highlight this guy who was I think it's Brendan Borstein. He's a junior with Toronto Varsity Bluesmen, which is the U of T hockey team.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, after falling in the first round of the playoffs, February 2020, so basically right before the pandemic, everything world shut down, his team got knocked out. This former CHL hockey player has suited up just 6 times for his high school team. So in this guy, he's basically at the same echelon, or he is a CHL player who's now playing in OUA, but that's the CHL players are getting way more games and practices, and OUA is told to stay at home.
Right.
So what I'm assuming maybe your focus is on basketball, but maybe it's not. What leagues or what things about OUA makes you sort of cringe about the fact that these are essentially excluded as elite players or elite leagues?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, I think the reason why the Ontario government is attacking OUA is because they're an easy target, in the sense that so I don't think it's them saying that they're not elite, even though technically they have to say they're elite to shut them down. But I don't think
the elite got the exemptions. Right?
Calling
them elite.
That's not what I'm saying. No. What I'm saying is that the OUA, I'm sure they would say the OUA is elite, but I'm saying that they're an easy target because they have arenas, they have funding.
So does CHL.
And sorry, in the sense, like in regards to gatherings, right? Because I'm assuming they're going to shut everything down that can bring out the most gatherings, and so that's why I'm assuming that they're targeting the OUA because a lot of people go to the U of T games, the Ryerson games, Simon Fraser, McMaster. Like a lot of people go to those football games and basketball games. So you're like, okay, well, if we call them, say that they're not elite, then we can limit gatherings.
Well, and I mean, I think the only pushback I would give to that would be that like CHL is going to have more, like, so the CHL is an umbrella organization that encompasses all Canadian-based junior ice hockey league. So Western Hockey League, OHL, Quebec Major Junior, right? These are essentially the feeder leagues to the NHL. And they would basically be the equivalent of like most of their arenas would be essentially like a lower bowl capacities of the major sports arenas, which I would say is probably roughly the equivalent of to where OUA leagues would be playing.
Mhm.
So my pushback would be that I think the elite leagues they have listed are going to have the same capacity and same likelihood overall to have large groups or large attendance, assuming it was permitted and all that other jazz. I would say, to me, the reason they're excluded, and I agree with you, they're an easy target, it's because the universities essentially are not private businesses. They are
Right.
in
Yes.
business. They are in business with government.
With the government, yeah.
And so the government
That's what I was-
they're an extension. And so I think the closeness to government, whereas all the other leagues don't have that same closeness, I
Yes.
think
'Cause,
is the more likely cause. Although I don't disagree with your point that they are concerned with trying to limit the large gatherings.
Right.
I think there's too many parallels to the ones that they left open in terms of size of.
Yes. But I was thinking, even in light of coming out of 2021, already the gatherings were already limited for the games. So it kind of
Well-
threw me off. It kind of threw me off when I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
wait, hold on. They're gonna stop play for these guys again."
Well, and you're right. I mean, you look at Toronto, the NHL is a joke because you put on one channel and you got a full arena, and you put on the Leafs and the building's empty.
We'll get there. Yeah, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
But your point, at the end of 2021 in Ontario, they've basically told pro sports teams you have to play with no fans. So and I think that's the point you're making. I'm assuming Raptors have the same.
Well, just more so just looking at it from why the government was targeting these guys, but looking at why the OUA is why I would consider it elite. Well, one, because I've been to games, and yeah, these guys are top tier. So, for example, some Canadian basketball programs play Division I schools, Division I American NCAA schools as part of their regular schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They play pro teams from Europe. Right? It doesn't get more elite than that when you're playing Harvard or Arizona or UCLA or Duke. Right? So a lot of these Canadian teams, or some of these Canadian teams, get to play NCAA teams, and some of them are actually are considered NCAA teams, like Simon Fraser.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're kind of like, okay, well, where'd you get that from? So, but yeah, but it's crazy because now when you look at the amateur level, right? So you have the college, but then you look at like everything below college, and you look at the vaccine passports and how it's affected the lower tier. Even though they're allowed to play, it's still hindered by vaccine mandates. What I mean by that is that players can't play unless they're vaccinated. Coaches can't coach unless they're vaccinated. And at that level, below the college level, a lot of these coaches are volunteers. Most of the coaches are volunteers. They're parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even like, let's say, like, as a parent, like, and we kind of have to, and as a listener, if you're not an athlete, you kind of have to put yourself in an athlete's shoes and really think like, okay, so what's the athlete's mindset? Well, the athlete is saying, okay, you know what? I want to play. I'm going to try to make it big in hockey. I'm going to try to make it big in soccer. And so there's a YouTube channel that everybody follows, basketball hoopers follow, called Ball is Life. That's the tagline. So for these athletes, ball is life. Sports is life for some of these people, for some of these kids. And so, like, let's say you have a 12-year-old, elite athlete, and now he can't play because his parents said he can't be vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now he can't play on the team, or he can't be in the gym, or there's a great coach who's doing great things, and he can't be in the gym, or he can't coach because he's not vaccinated. Right? And then when you look at the cost benefit analysis, you're doing the trade-off, and you're kind of like, well, I mean, are we going to get rid of this great coach, or even are we not going to take this great player, right?
Kyrie.
But even I was joking. I was joking with well, not necessarily joking, but talking with Tyra about it. And I said, you know how much you want to bet at the amateur level that there's teams, like just grassroots level teams, and you have coaches who are coaching, and then like one of their best players is not vaccinated. What do you do? Well, you forge the paperwork. Like that's a legit
Mm-hmm.
a legit forging of paperwork, right? Because at the amateur level, it's amateur, right? It's not. I doubt that they're scanning the kids' phones for their vaccine papers. I'm assuming. I haven't done the
Submit it
research on this,
once.
but I'm assuming. But I'm assuming. Okay, you got the coach, right? And he's like, all right, guys, new vaccine mandate. You guys got to show your vaccine paperwork. Kid comes to you and he's like, hey, coach, my parents ain't down with that. I'm not vaccinated. Coach is like, all right, cool. Just keep it on the low. Don't tell nobody. when we go to the tournament next week, I'm gonna check your name off. I'm gonna check everybody's name off that they got the vaccine passport, right? The convener of the league says, hey, everybody did their paperwork. All right, cool. Let's go hoop.
Well, and I would say to you, I think I have a slightly inside source, and I won't give too much details to explain how it works.
Who's your source?
Don't
give up the source.
I think the way that
No snitching on the block.
The real enforcement occurs is the same way we all experience it, which is, it's a sports facility. The sports facility is required to do vaccine passports on the way in for all attendees, including players. So, to some extent, you're not wrong what you're saying. Same concept, except rather than forging the paperwork, you slip them in the back door.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing.
Yeah,
right?
It's funny you say that because I'm getting a picture of the gyms I used to play in as a kid, growing up, and I'm thinking like Jim Archdeacon and Terry Miller and all these backdoor passageways where you're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna open up the side door, come through the side door, and we're hooping, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know necessarily how the leagues work, but I know, let's say facility wise. So if you're trying to practice, the sneaking in the back door will definitely work. The forging of paperwork, unfortunately, the NHL had to deal with one of those. In good old.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay, I'll save that one. I'll save that one.
Yeah, but it's funny because I know a couple guys who are trainers, and they have their own facilities, right? And so their own basketball facilities. And so I can't help but think in my head, I'm like, what do I mean by that? Let me be clear. So the new wave that I noticed in amateur basketball hoops is, there's a lot of basketball trainers, right? And so the trainers have leveled up and they got like their own gyms, right? So they get a unit building and they basically, lay some wood or some like turf, some like plastic turf, and they have their hoops up. They got the place painted. The turf is colored, so it matches. They got their branding on the court, and this is where these trainers do their training, their basketball training. Like there's places like this in Brampton, Saga, Scarborough, Pickering, so forth. And so when they say, okay, shut down or vaccine passports, like what are these trainers gonna do? When a kid's just, sometimes around the corner and the kid's going to come and say, hey, can you train me? I need to get right for the fall. Is the trainer going to say, yo, where's your passport? You don't got a passport? Then you can't train. You can't get better. You can't go to the league. You can't go get a Division I scholarship. You can't work on your mental health. You see, are you seeing the dilemma here?
Yeah, you're compounding the factors for negative outcomes.
Right. And so that's why I was like wrestling with, okay, so like what happens at the amateur level for the dad who's, working on something?
Put it this way, the dad who can't go watch his own kid play.
Yep, that too. But the dad who's working on something, right? When I mean the dad who's working on something, we all know those dads, who has they have their kid training. You got your kid training. And then you got the dad who's coaching the team, right? The coach's kid. And the dad has a plan, for his son to say, okay, look, I'm going to coach this team, and my son's going to have the green light. For those who don't know what the green light is, that means go.
Yeah.
The green light means go. So no matter, you can do no wrong necessarily, right? You get all the shots, you get all the playing time, right? So yes, we're laughing, but it's a real thing. And it's a good thing, right? Where you have like dads or coaches who are saying, okay, look, I have a guy I'm working with, and I need to be on the sidelines to make sure Zeke is getting his burn. And not to get too to sidetrack, but amateur sports is still politics. It's still politics. So just like if okay, so Joel, Joel has his son there, right? Uncle Darnell's been training Zeke, right? And so me and Joel have an understanding. Like, look, man, Zeke's gonna be the next Steve Nash. But in order for him to get there, we need to get him the playing time and the shot attempts and all that. So as long as I'm the head coach, Zeke's good. Okay, well, Darnell, you're out. Zeke has to get a new coach and deal with the politics of dealing with a new coach. Right? So these are real factors that parents are dealing with, and also kids are dealing with in light of the vaccine mandates. Yeah. What's your take on the amateur level and kids not being able to participate?
Yeah, I think, I've definitely had a few messages from people early on being like, dude, what do I do? What do I do? How do I solve this problem? Like, not wanting to get vaxxed, but exactly what I said. My kid's playing. I'm not allowed in the building. And that means for a parent who wants to hold to their conviction, either you try to make it work. Okay, I don't go to my kid's sports thinking, okay, we can do this for a year. I drop him off. I coordinate his, he's all, how many times, like I know parents, like I was coaching for a couple of years back. How many parents or how many kids are showing up carpooled, right? So rather than every other week you're carpooling, one dad's like, dude, I'll pay you, like take my kid, And so my thought is that like the level of pressure that we're putting on parents more than anything, like we're, like or I should say the society, government, the level of coercion to exploit the children to force parents, to me is just so disgusting. And, it's all under the guise of the greater good. And it's, to me, that's what's most disgusting about it is then, you end up with people making a decision they don't want to do because they've been forced or coerced.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with my cousin, and he said to me, he said, my son came to me and asked me to get vaccinated. So my cousin, he's not vaccinated. And so neither is his kid. So his kid comes to him and says, "Hey dad, like, can I get vaccinated?" I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Why?" He's like, "Oh, because I want to see the new Spider-Man movie." Right? and when my cousin's like, he's like, this is the problem, Darnell. People are getting vaccinated for the wrong reasons. Like, it's not even about your health or the safety of others.
Nope.
Right? So right? So it was a funny moment, but it was funny, but it was true. Like, people are getting vaccinated for the wrong reasons versus like, okay, well, you know what? I made an informed decision. This looks like the right thing to do. And there are those people who do that. You have a right to do that. But in light of with the sports, you're kind of looking at it and saying, okay, look, the parent doesn't want the kid to get vaccinated, but the kid is saying, hey, dad, I want to hoop. I want to play. Like, I don't watch CP24. I don't listen to Sixth Sense Report, right? He's saying, okay, look, I just want to get vaccinated so I can play. I don't really care about all this. Like my playing career is at stake, right? And for me, and this really hits hard for me because I grew up a ball is life guy. I grew up where where basketball was my only thing. It was my God, as I tell people. And so I know what these kids are going through
while repenting. Just kidding.
Actually, no, I wasn't even a believer then.
No, I meant you tell them while repenting.
Oh yeah. But like, so my heart goes out to them because, basketball sports for me. Well, basketball sports was the only hope for me to make something of myself. So I put my all into it. I put my heart into it. I put my effort into it, and to have it taken away, like that, I'm sure, again, we talked about mental health stuff, but I could definitely see some animosity between parents and kids wanting to get vaccinated and parents saying, you know what, I don't think it's safe.
Or I'm not comfortable. Right?
I'm not comfortable.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think the safety is part of that, but more significantly, it's like, I'm not confident in this decision. Right? Like, and the basically the removal of a parent's ability to make a decision for their child because the coercion is so strong.
Right. And just to be clear, and I like how you use the right word, coercion. And sometimes people, like, you have to use the right words because coercion is force. People are saying, "Oh no, you're making a free decision." No, you're not making a free decision. There's variables or incentives that are playing on your ability to be able to think and move freely. Right. And so that's coercion. If you took the vaccine mandates away and all the pressure, then the person would be free to make a decision. But once you put in those nudges, as some economists call it, nudges, or these overwhelming incentives that limit your ability to move, then yeah, of course, sometimes you have no decision but to do X. So, but then are you really making a decision? No, it's coercion. But anyways, now moving on to the pro leagues, right? And what we're seeing with the pro leagues, which is very interesting, to say the least, with the NHL. What's going on in the NHL?
Agree or disagree with our views? Give us your 2 cents. You can leave your comments on any of our social media platforms or email us at sixcentsreport@gmail.com.
6 cents makes change. 6 cents makes change. 6 cents makes change.
Well, I mean, we can, but I would say before we get into the NHL specifically, I think it's a nice transition from what you said about essentially forging documents. Well, I'll put a couple articles in the show notes page. We have one NHL player. I have 2 articles. One, 3 NFL players were suspended for misrepresenting their vaccine status. This was dated like December 3rd. And of course, the most prominent player on that list was Antonio Brown, which if you're an NFL follower, you would know why I said that. If not, don't worry about it.
But wait, don't worry.
Okay.
I tweeted about it the other day. You don't follow me? Do good at Darnell. Do good at _Darnell on Twitter, and I posted the clip of Antonio Brown taking his uniform off mid game. While he was on the sideline and walking out. It was a game against the Jets. He plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's
Not anymore.
The Jets. And they're in the Jets stadium, but he takes his jersey off, takes his undertop off his gloves, throws it into the crowd, and then, it just starts, doing some jumping jacks, running to the tunnel, waving at the fans, and then, he was there. And then the next day he's at the Laker game. But yeah, that's him.
Yeah. So, and then, favorite NHL troublemaker, Evander Kane.
So what's with the troublemakers, man?
I don't know. Evander Kane's got
these anti-vaxxers are rebels, man.
Yeah, checkered past. And I mean, when I say checkered past, it's not that bad. He's just been sort of prominent for, sort of ridiculousness. He got sort of lambasted for posting some stacks of him on Twitter. Probably, I think he was in Vegas or something. Just, little things that essentially his boisterousness gets him in hot water. So, but he got suspended 21 games for showing a fake vaccine card or submitting a fake vaccine card. So yeah, I'll put that one in the show notes page as well. So coming around to the NHL, just recently we've had the NHL had a break. I say we just because it's my sport, but a bunch of teams, I guess, and I'm sure other teams have this, but the NHL, I'm paying more attention to it. Let's say after a certain number of players gets put into like the COVID protocol, and this was true for last year as well as this year, they exceed a certain percentage of players in COVID protocol, the team itself would have its next few games postponed so that they can get their full roster back. 1 or 2 players, 3 players, they would just keep, rolling, miss them for a couple games. Well, as a result of Omicron, go late, I think basically before the Christmas break, and normally the NHL sort of has extended breaks. I think what they've done recently is, let's say over a 10-day period, you have each teams either end up at the beginning or the back end of this around Christmas where they get like an 6-day extended break. So some teams will get that break going into the Christmas and some teams will get that break coming out of Christmas. Well, they ended up doing like a massive shutdown, and sort of shut everybody down for, let's say, a week, give or take, around Christmas, because there was just so many players and so many teams getting shut down because too many, and NHL has all but one player, Tyler Bertuzzi, vaccinated. Now, just for a caveat, I do know that there are other players that used to be in the NHL that either chose to take the year off or maybe retire early as a means to avoid the mandate.
Really?
One of them, his last name is Ronaldo. Or no, Ronaldo, something like Ronaldo. He posted in a Facebook group that's like 150,000 people that are like Ontario. I don't remember the name. Ontario Businesses Against Mandates. It's like 150,000 members. He posted in there essentially that either he's taking time off from the league and he started a business because he didn't want to get vaccinated. So there as much as they say, like, I think the NFL has 93% of the league vaccinated. I think it's
the NBA is 97.
Yeah, and then this was dated September 12th. All but 5 teams have player vax rates above 90% for the NFL. So NHL was, they had a couple of tricklers, and now I believe they're down to just the one guy. And this guy, Tyler Bertuzzi, plays for the Detroit team. He's not allowed to play any games in Canada because he's not vaccinated. So when his team travels to Canada for a road trip, he's not allowed to play because he's unvaccinated. Okay. So all that to say that, it's an interesting place. It looks like the vast majority of players across all the leagues are vaccinated, and we're seeing way more. At least I would say, if you go back and do, at least for the NHL, I know this is true. If you try to do number of man games lost to COVID protocol, meaning they were in COVID protocol, I think you would actually find a greater proportion of games lost this year when 99% of the players are vaccinated than last year. And pre-Omicron, so like pre-late December, I would have said it was trending slightly above. So even for the first 3 months, let's say, of the season, and the reason I have a good take on this is because of fantasy sports. So I only do fantasy hockey, and basically it's like the number of players, that guy's got to go on my bench or on my injury reserve list because he's in COVID protocol. Like, it's insane. I cannot believe how many players are like that. One of my buddies renamed his team to become Team Omicron because he's like, my entire team has COVID. And this is like 12 to 13 players in the league. Yeah. So like his entire fantasy team had COVID. So
wow.
And I was just paying attention thinking, it's a little bit high. I mean, that sort of sucks. It's totally going against the narrative with regards to the vaccines. Vaccines should have made this better, not worse than last year. And, it was, as I said, it was pre-December or early December. I would have said it was probably trending about the same. And my perspective was it was slightly higher than the previous year. Honestly, we had to add more bench players and injury reserve players for both the leagues I'm in. because we had so many players in COVID protocol that like to try to run your fantasy team, you're like, I can't even compete because I don't have enough players because too many guys are on the bench and I got to drop my good guys. Like it's a gong show for anyone who's not in, fantasy sports. Sorry if I got too much into the weeds there, but it was just, you're watching this and you're like, to me, it's just sort of a proof of the disaster that these policies are. Because, and this is where I really wanted to go, was with this whole issue. It's a really difficult thing to evaluate how effective, or how effective is not necessarily the right word, but I think it comes. What was the effect of these policies? Did they actually produce a benefit for the league? Because the whole reason of mandating is not for the safety of your players. The whole reason to mandate is safety of players would play into it, but that's just a piece of it. Ideally, the whole point behind the mandate is to improve the ability for the team to do what they're supposed to do, which is be on the field, have a full squad, prevent, COVID within your locker rooms, prevent it for your staff that aren't on the team. Where, of course, we had no benchmarks, right? No benchmarks to say, here's what the passport for the amateur leagues is going to do. Or the kids. Here's what the effect is going to be for, or predicting, okay, we think the result will be a limited number of cases. So we should only see 50% of the cases we had from before, right? My point is that there was no benchmarks provided, no way of judging the effectiveness of these policies other than, well, of course, this is what we must do because it's motivated and has the right motivations. And so I think probably one of the best examples of the complete idiocy would be Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie's an idiot?
No, the idiocy of the mandates.
I think some people call Kyrie an idiot.
Well, of course, for being an anti-vaxxer.
Hold on. Let's be clear. Kyrie's not an anti-vaxxer. The reason he just didn't want to disclose whatever he was, what his status was, and so that's what he was saying. He was just saying, okay, look, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. It's just I think I have a right not to disclose my medical information, and he's going to stand by that.
We don't know. I'm sure many people will say, well, obviously that means he's not vaccinated, and really,
not necessarily. But
no, I agree, not necessarily, and I would be even more a fan of him if he was vaccinated and taking this stand.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think at the end of the day, if we really want things to change, it's the people who have gone halfway or have been going along. It's them standing up that makes the difference, right? Yeah. The people who are making noise have been making noise all along. And the statement from the beginning has always been, this ends when we say it ends.
Yeah. I think, well, one of the unique situations about the Kyrie situation is that when he refused to disclose his vaccine status, they told him, okay, well, he because of the New York mandate on the vaccine mandates is that what was it, Joel? That players.
Yeah. Okay. So as I understood it, New York State was requiring the home team's players to be vaccinated.
Yes.
But the visiting team wasn't required to be vaccinated. And it might have been New York City, not New York State, but regardless. His home facility was required to have all of the home team players vaccinated.
Yes. And so that's why he the idea was that he would be a part-time player. Meaning he'll only play on the road. And so Kyrie's like, okay, fine, I'll be a part-time player. And then, the Brooklyn Nets came out with a statement saying, okay, well, it's either he's a full-time player or he's not going to be with the team at all. It's either he's here full-time or not here at all, not being part-time. And so, they told him to go sit down. And so he wasn't playing for since the start of the season in October. And then COVID started hitting the NBA. And players started dropping like flies, and the NBA had a record number of call-ups from their G League, their development league. So guys were being called up, and because a lot of teams are undermanned or had to cancel games, and so now they're like, okay, well, you know what? Yeah, come and be a part-time player. It's cool. And so now he's back and he's doing his thing, right? So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't remember where it is, and if I can find it, I'll put it in the show notes page. But I think I remember, maybe you showed it to me or gave me the quote where it's like, basically it was like he'd never missed a game. Like,
Oh, James Harden. Yeah, James Harden. They asked James Harden. They said, "Oh, how's now that Kyrie's back? How is he?" And James Harden said, "Like Kyrie, elite." So even though he was off, he's still coming back, kicking butt, and ready to go. But Joel, what's your 2 cents on this whole issue?
I think it's. I like that it's forcing the ridiculousness into the public eye. Right. I mean, there's one issue we haven't touched. I'll touch it briefly. You take NFL, Aaron Rodgers, right? He got COVID with no vaccine and went to, Joe Rogan to refer to him to his doctor to get, prescriptions for the same type of stuff that Joe Rogan took. And, it's making this conversation that I would argue mainstream media has been shutting down more prominent, right? Which is, there are alternatives to the vaccinate strategy. There's I'm young, I'm at low risk, I can actually get sick and get treated and have a very high, exceptionally high probability of a good outcome. And so I think for me, it's just one more component of the narrative that is being pressured by the data and the reality that the narrative we've been fed is going to collapse. It's continuing to collapse. I mean, whether it's masks or anything, all of the things that have been said for the last 2 years, people are turning, the conversation about masks is getting back to what we would have said in 2019, which is basically their facial decorations. They don't actually do anything. And that you might think I'm being ridiculous, but these are, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but these are the things that are now being given as the excuse for why Omicron is actually, it doesn't make a difference. Why are all these cases occurring? Oh, because masks are basically just facial decoration. When you sit around someone for 5 hours wearing a mask, the 5 hours had way more influence than any mask is going to protect you. So I know that's sort of a rant, totally off topic, but really it's that I think the pressure on the narrative is coming from all places. And for those of us that are a little bit more in tune, it's also in the mainstream, it's in the news, it's in the, public discourse, it's in the Joe Rogan podcasts. But I think in pro sports is where the people who aren't paying attention are being continually exposed to conflicting information and evidence to go, wait a second, wasn't this supposed to be prevented? Wasn't the whole strategy that we took, the mandates and the forced procedures, supposed to prevent the ridiculous experience that we're having? So that's my what I'm excited about all this, and what entertains me about it. What about you? What's your 2 cents? What do you think is most important about this issue?
My 2 cents, Joel. This is my 2 cents. The Ontario Premier Douglas Robert Ford Jr. dropped the ball.
The basketball?
He dropped the ball, man. Pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, he didn't. This is just a hot mess. And we're kind of sitting here looking at this whole thing and thinking about it and like, okay, so wait, what exactly is going on? Let's try to figure this out. And it's been it's just been a hot mess trying to navigate this whole thing. Man, you can't make sense out of nonsense. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I would say to you, Doug Ford's dropping of the ball is not unique. It is abundant across Canada.
Yeah. Well, do you guys think Doug Ford dropped the ball? Let us know. You can contact us at our 6 cents support, 6 cents support at gmail.com. If you're trying to get in touch with me, it's do good to Darnell, DOGUDDA _ Darnell on Twitter and Instagram, and Darnell Samuels on Facebook.
And I'm TJoelN39 everywhere. Most of my posts are on Instagram. Probably the place I'm least shadow banned Or actually, probably Twitter is probably the least place I'm shadow banned. But yeah, hit me up. Let us know. Give us your 2 cents. Maybe
And check us out on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube. We have our YouTube channel up.
Yeah, Darnell's putting in work, making some clips to give
playlists.
Some smaller clips of the same content. So 15-minute, 10-minute, 5-minute, 20-minute segments. So yeah, check it out. Let us know what you like. Let us know if there's more playlists or more focused playlists you're looking for, and we'll try to please the people, give them what they want.
6 cents makes change.
But you heard me? Does that make sense?
Madden and Mitchell Media.